So, the topic today is polymathy, a needed but misunderstood concept. And first, I'm going to start with the role of polymathy in today's world. And to start, we have on the one hand the idea that polymathy, or the capacity to gather wide-ranging knowledge, is very important for several reasons, especially because we live in such a fragmented world with different departments that never talk to each other in organizations, and the polymathic people can make bridges. So on the one hand, we have very strong view to use polymathy to help people and organizations. But on the other hand, are organizations prepared to deal with polymathic people? So we have this sentence here from an educator that said that Leonardo da Vinci would never be successful in a traditional organization, even one like IBM, or neither our universities, because the organizations are designed in a way that they do not tolerate this kind of thinking. So how can we do that? How can we proceed with this thing and reconcile? So the first problem, or the first thing that I would like to share, is how polymathy is embedded with so much philosophy, which is something that not so many people talk about. And then I start with the concept of islands of meaning. What does that mean? When we wake up into the world, we are thrown into this reality. Nothing makes sense. It's all noise. And to make sense of things, we start to go into small domains like mathematics, like music, or dance, or chemistry, or sports. And when we delve into those domains, things start making sense, like now I understand an equation, now I understand how to compose, or how to dance a Tchaikovsky song. But when you start delving into something, what do you do in the other parts of the world? So how much noise will you still withstand in the world? And this problem about living in a noisy, complicated VUCA, we say today, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. So how can we make sense of that? And this has been a problem that philosophers have also tackled. And one famous philosopher, Albert Camus, which is known by saying that the world is ultimately an absurd, he said, all right, even if it's an absurd, what can we do? So even in this crazy world, our effort as a living being would be to examine, to enlarge, and to enrich this ephemeral island in which we have just landed. But first, to do that, to have this liberty of enlarging, enriching the world, we first must know, must get knowledge. And this is not something that only he came with. Philosophers, also educators like Humboldt, said that the ultimate task of our existence is to achieve as much substance, is to delve in things with purpose, to get more and more for our concept of humanity as a person from and throughout our lifetime, and linking what we are, the self, to the world. So to enrich and enlarge, in his words. So polymathy is not only about multiple expertise. It's not about being the Leonardo da Vinci of the 21st century. It's about your experience with the world. It has a deep philosophical meaning. All right? But, or above that, one thing that's very important to talk about is the psychoeconomics of polymathy. Psycho means, or psychological means, your motivation plus your emotion and plus your cognitive. And economics means the benefits and costs. You're always making calculations about the benefits and costs of things. And as I said, when you delve into a domain, there is no free lunch. You have to invest. You have to invest your time. You have to invest more important than your time, your interest, your attention. So when you do something, even if you like it, it drains a little bit of your time, of course, of your attention. Then you have to rest. Every time you pass through a challenge, even if it's your favorite domain, you get a little, whoa, I really invest in that. Okay, so there is no real free lunch in that. So how can a polymath exist in a world like that? On top of that, we have an even worse problem. One thing is to acquire knowledge. Today I can go to Wikipedia and learn about chemistry, for example. But with my background in business, would I be able to join the chemistry field? Would other chemists allow me to participate in the conversation? And the answer generally is no. So we don't have only a problem of knowledge, we have a problem of the gatekeepers, the frontiers between the domains being so fiercely defended by those people. Why? Because different from the polymaths, they can only find meaning and they can only be, let's say, valuable within that domain. So they protect it like a lion protects his pride. So this is my domain. You can't invade. So we have two problems when we want to become a polymath in this world. However, there are clear advantages of becoming a polymath, of managing to being, how can I say, an investor in multiple domains. And then I make this distinction between how we are trained classically. We are trained to be specialists, and the average specialist is like the single star in the middle of the stars that habitate one field. So it's a very little space within a very vast universe. That's what the world traditionally wants us to do. But when we study field leaders, they are a little bit different. They tend to be broader, even though they still are generally restricted to one domain. But when you study the most creative people, Nobel Prizes, you see that not only they have deep knowledge within their field of a main professional field, but they also bring knowledge. They draw upon things from different domains or they bring different perspectives. And research has found that very eminent creators are 22 to 20 times more likely to have serious avocations, so serious interests in areas that have nothing to do with their main, under quotes, domain. And it makes them very different, very likely to come with really novel ideas. And with that, I made a model in an article 2018 in the Journal of Genius and Eminence, which tries to separate or better, to predict the path to make polymathic people and polymathic contributions at the organizational level and at the social level. All right, so I talked how polymathy, in one hand, is seen as an exit, as a possibility to this crazy VUCA world, and how organizations are so behind, most organizations, in dealing with polymathy. And I showed how the circumstances and how the psychoeconomics of our life can shape polymathy. But let's be very precise what polymathy is. So, in my studies, I came to the conclusion that polymathy is based on three major components. First, breadth. Second, depth. And third, integration. If you lack any one of these three, you cannot be a polymath. And I'm going to explain why. All right? The full definition is the following. Polymathy refers to a lifelong relationship with knowledge, learning, and creating that entails a significant development of three elements: breadth, depth, and integration. So let's check each of the three. So breadth first refers to wide-ranging knowledge and learning and covering different and often disparate, different domains, at least from an observer from afar. Depth is attaining a significantly profound understanding of something, whether technical, all right, I know how to use a PPT or Excel, whatever, whether epistemic, I know the principles of mathematics, whether empirical, I have experience in marketing, in sales that make me a very successful, effective, or proficient salesperson. Okay, so it's not only abstract knowledge. All right, and integration is the one that brings everything together. It involves weaving synergistic or integrative networks of enterprise and the generation of creative products through fundamental connections that go beyond the separation between domains. Let me be even more clear. When we have these three elements, we can then separate what is polymathy and what polymathy is not. So we have the dilettante, which is the person who has breadth but lacks depth, or is the person like who goes into several fields and tries this, tries that, but never goes for mastery. Mastery is important. It relates to depth. The specialist, of course, is not a polymath because he lacks the breadth. So it's a person with a narrow expertise. But we also have the encyclopedist or the erudite, the people that just consume knowledge. They are like the encyclopedia. Everything is there, but what what for? So what? What can you do with that? So when you don't have integration, you have this kind of person that only consumes knowledge but cannot produce something meaningful, something that is an innovation with this knowledge. All right. So if you lack any of these three, you are failing in one of the elements of polymathy. And finally, I bring my new furnace model of knowledge creation to make a metaphor, which I think is going to illuminate the topic and tie with the importance of polymathy. So, in this metaphor, how you can act in the world to build knowledge is based on your furnace, all right? But your furnace is needs some kind of material, which is the knowledge that is being prepared, that exists in the domain. And this knowledge is very systematized. You draw upon knowledge from articles, from, for example, journals like The Lancet, if you are in medicine, or Academy of Management, if you are in business, etc. But they have a format, they have a way to be conveyed, and it makes easier for you to consume this knowledge. But when we are inventing, we are not inventing this kind of very strict, formatted, branded knowledge. We are building, in fact, very or more fluid nuggets of ideas, of knowledge, which have a ill built structure. They are not really finally complete. That's the main interaction that we have in our minds. When you have an idea, or better, an inspiration, it doesn't come fully formed. It comes as an insight, as a feeling, as a sensation. We should go into this direction. And then you make nuggets of understanding, nuggets of knowledge, sometimes even to talk to yourself. Only you can understand the nuggets that you are making. All right, but it's not, it doesn't make knowledge into the real outside world. When you want to make knowledge for the real world, you have to use a common language, right? If you're a musician, you have to write your score, you have to record your music. If you're a poet, you have to write words in a very bounded manner. So I call these provisional items of knowledge booleans. So they are more or less in the shape, but they haven't gone through the accreditation process. So it's like your first draft, not necessarily the first, but a draft of an article if you're in academia. And then after the article goes through different furnaces of your reviewers, it becomes a more refined, validated, an accredited product and becomes an ingot. And here I have a stack of ingots, and it's not by chance. It's to show that we have a stock of knowledge which we can draw upon, and this knowledge uh, comes from different domains, of course, but in different shapes. But the most useful and the most, how can I say, perceived valuable as valuable knowledge are in this very constrained forms. So articles or even a podcast, those things that are in a file format. So this is my metaphor for how the creativity works. And polymathic people, what they can do, they can bring and blend different metals. They make different molds. They change, they experiment. Their nuggets are crazy, are rainbows. Of course, they suffer a little bit because their bullions tend to be a little bit different from the branded ingots that we see. But when we have gatekeepers that understand the value of these different bullions, you have a more diverse, a richer final ingot that will bring much more value to this stack here, because that's going to be something new, something sometimes surprising and valuable, different from the things we had in the past. So that's not only a model of knowledge, but a model of creativity and evolution of our culture, of our understanding. So that's the message I would like to talk about. And I have just one thing that I would like to stress when I would talk about knowledge. So it's a lot of different types of knowledge, not only epistemic knowledge. Sometimes we have this technical knowledge, sometimes we have this knowledge that is only for the domain, but what polymaths excel is in those metacognitive skills, which are skills that serve for multiple domains. And we go back to that figure of the creative polymath with his or her different and colorful star in comparison to the average specialist and the field leader. Okay, I have the full model here just for you to know that I have a model not only as a metaphor, but as something, as an ingot that can be distributed. And thank you very much.